my hand to let you know you are approaching the end of your allotted time to speak. We may also ask you a follow-up question to which you will have 1 minute to respond. Once we've been through all the questions, each candidate will give a 1-minute conclusion in summary. And after each section of the debate, students will have an opportunity to ask questions to the candidates. So we're going to begin with the referendum questions, starting with the Millennium Promise. Could each committee please introduce themselves quickly before they start? Is the Millennium Promise Committee here? No, okay. So I don't think we have a committee for the World Food Program, so we'll move on to the Clubs and Societies Levy. Yes, committee, would you please come up?
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Logan Breen. I'm the co-chair of the Yes Committee for Clubs and Societies. In my two other capacities, I'm also the vice president internal of CUSA and the co-president of a club. Unfortunately, that referendum was not successful. This year, we're running a very similar referendum with a very similar question. However, it's a lower amount. This year, we're only asking students to pay $1.50 more per semester for clubs and societies. And I'll explain a little bit the rationale behind why we're running this increase to the clubs and societies levy. So essentially, for the past 2 years, CUSA Clubs has been running a deficit when we're talking about club funding. Last year, CUSA Clubs ran a deficit of about $30,000, and this year, so far, after the completion of winter funding, we're running a deficit of about $20,000. These deficits can be absorbed in the CUSA operational budget, but they are not sustainable at all. Last year, for example, CUSA Clubs had closed a lot of dormant accounts from clubs that had gone defunct over the pandemic, for example, meaning we had enough revenue coming in to cover those deficits. That's no longer the case this year, and that's won't be the case moving forward. So Aidan will explain a little bit about what it'll mean for clubs if this referendum doesn't pass. So what happens if this referendum does pass? Well, currently clubs are eligible for up to $2,700 per year, $500 in the summer and $2,200 during the fall and winter semesters in club funding. They can apply for that, and the Clubs Oversight Commission evaluates and then gives the money out to clubs. Unfortunately, if the referendum doesn't pass, that number will have to be cut down, and that's based on what the Clubs Oversight Commission will decide. If the referendum does go through, though, that means we can provide even more funding to clubs, so that $2,700 number will increase. And as well, what will happen if the referendum passes, there are a lot of other improvements. Club storage, doing a better club storage system so clubs have access to more storage space on campus. Administrative improvements, a better banking system, so that checks go out faster, so that there's potentially a new banking system where there's more free e-transfers to clubs. Also, response time improvements. We're very, very short-staffed right now, so being able to pay staff more, to work more hours, to have better response time for clubs, that's something that will also come about. So kind of in summary as to why we're running this referendum, we're running a deficit. It's no longer sustainable to keep funding clubs as much as we can. And on the flip side, we've also seen more and more clubs applying for certification. After we've come out of the pandemic, more and more clubs are applying for certification, and we can only accept so many clubs given how much we bring in the revenue from the levy. This year alone, we have 25 new 25 new certified clubs, and we've had applications into the hundreds for newly certified clubs, but we just don't have the financial ability to support these clubs.
Now I get to handle the much more negative side of all of this. So the reality that we've been hit with is that we've been having an increasing amount of certifications with the money remaining rather stagnant. So while it's indexed to inflation, that doesn't really account for much other changes in cost. So as of now, I believe we just certified, we have just over 200 clubs right now, and that number keeps continuing to grow, yet the money that we're using to fund them is remaining the same. Now, I'm not very good at math, but when you have a growing amount of people that need money and a stagnant amount, it doesn't necessarily divide properly. So we're reaching a reality where we're going to hit a point, and very soon, where the deficit becomes too big and we won't be able to continue to give $2,700 a year. So clubs oversight will be faced with reality where they have to decide to either A, cut the amount of funding that clubs get, or B, cut clubs or reduce the amount of clubs that we decide to certify. That's not a good reality, and that's not something that we want to have to do. So the reason we're pushing this is not just to be able to expand our operations and expand what we can offer clubs, but to make sure that we don't have to be taking steps backwards and we can be taking steps forward. So we want to make sure that with this additional money, we can continue to fund CUSA's club system, which is one of the most integral things that the association does, and is many students' only main link to CUSA operations. So it's very important that we continue to not just maintain the status quo, but to strengthen one of CUSA's most integral services.
And it's important to note, too, just in summary, that clubs play a very vital role here at Carleton. Roughly 8,000 undergraduate students are part of clubs. And if you do the math, we have about 19,000 undergraduate students right now. That's nearly half of all Carleton undergraduate students who are a member of at least one club. That's a massive portion. And for a very minimal increase in the levy of $1.50, it's going to do a lot of good for nearly half of all students at Carleton.
Thank you to Logan and Aiden. We would now like to open the floor to the audience. If you have questions, just raise up your hand. We'll bring you a mic, and then you can ask your questions. Yep. If you have questions, just come up to us, and we'll give you the mic.
Just a simple question, really. When was the last time the club's levy was updated?
I don't have a precise year for you, Ali, but it's been a long time. It's been over a decade, if not more. So this is something that's been a long time coming, and it was something we tried last year, and we're really hopeful this year that with a lower amount, it's going to be something that'll go through. But if we update it this year, we'll be in a better financial position for years to come, and it'll set clubs up for quite a while.
Thank you, Logan. Okay, next question. It appears as though we don't have the next question. Thank you both. You can have a seat. All right, so the next group is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusive Levy. Do we have the representative for that? Just come up to the stage, please. Give them a round of applause.
Can we start? Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mohammed Faris. As you may know or not know, I am the current CUSA president. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for coming and showing up and representing. Thank you so much.
So, I hate to interrupt, but do you want to fix your name tag so they can see your name?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. So this one is the correct one? No, yeah, this one. Okay. So let's talk about this levy. So as you all may know, that CUSA does a lot of advocacy and equity work for students. We represent 25,000 students, which means 25,000 different needs and requirements and representation. Carleton has a visible minority of 40,000 students that come from different marginalized communities. And CUSA provides a lot of these services and support for those members in these community. We have 6 different service centers that are catered for specific community members and specific diverse needs. We also have a large population of students that we cater to through different advocacy efforts and campaigns, some of which each and every one of you has at one point touched. We start from Before Play Ask for sexual violence prevention, to Pop the Stigma for mental health, to Mosaic for international students and racialized students. Each of these are dedicated to support those individuals, right? So I'm going to pass over to Artur to introduce himself and to talk more.
Thank you so much, Fars. So my name is Artur. I am an AVP here for CUSA for Research and Advocacy. And kind of developing on the same point that was brought up by the club's committee, it's an economic question at the end of the day. Since the pandemic, services of EDI here at CUSA have increased dramatically in terms of demand. And the university, CUSA itself, has not been able to catch up, of course. This levy will be a levy of $2 that will, in any different ways, provide students with different services that pertain not only to service centers, but also to a wide variety of EDI initiatives that we try to promote at CUSA. In our advocacy roadmap, we had predicted 12 priorities to advocate for this year, and so far we have managed to advocate for most of them. And we've done that short of money. that's the reality. And, you know, as we see here, Carleton is a diverse campus, a diverse community, and to attend to the needs of the community that we have, we are proposing this fee levy. So, essentially.
Just to go off on that. Just to go off on that, is some of the things that the levy target specifically is about the increase in demand that Arthur mentioned. Before 2019, before COVID, the campaigns that we used to run were Pop the Stigma, Before Play Ask, Black History Month, and pretty much it. That was what the Financial Literacy Week. But since the pandemic and since Carleton becoming a more diverse community, there's been a surge in these campaigns and these initiatives. We've had Minwajia, we've had Orange Shirt Day, we have Mosaic, all stemmed out of COVID, and we need to reflect back, and we need to hear back to these demands and to the needs of this community. You know, just this year we participated for the second time in Capital Pride. This is the first time we reopened the Rainbow Crosswalk. We're also dedicating a lot of our funds towards other initiatives that are very important to Carleton students. We spend a lot of money on sexual violence prevention and to mitigate that, you know, all the way from when I was VPSI almost 2 years ago now. We had the initiative where we brought in smart coasters that were distributed in Ollies. We had smart scrunchies that were there for students. So there's a lot of items that go towards this. You know, from space management, we manage the prayer room, the multi-faith center, and the Islamic prayer room. And we want to put in a lot of work for renovations to make sure when you're connected to spirituality, it's a much better place for you to be in. So, in its totality, there's a lot of initiatives that we work for, that we sponsor members in the community for, and to make sure that they represent those communities, and so that we are able to provide for those communities who we don't necessarily touch. So that's the whole point of it. We're asking for $2 a semester for our EDI initiatives that are going directly to support the increase in demands to our service centers and campaigns and other initiatives that are benefiting all Carleton students.
And in the end of the day, I think a good way of looking at it, we know that this is money coming out of your pockets, of course, but these initiatives are a way of us that we have to give back to you guys, right? And in a way, if we cannot provide all students with a fair access to service, it's just simply a huge problem. We just count on your support here. It's $2 that we hope to increase, and we hope to keep servicing you.
Thank you. Big round of applause for Ferris and Arthur. And up next, you guys are good. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry. Audience, question time. Has anybody got a question for them? If you do, come up ahead to us and we'll give you the mic. Questions? Seems like there isn't a question. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks again. Next up, we're going to move ahead to the first year transition levy. Thank you, guys. It's only Ferris. Go ahead. Give him another round of applause. Thank you. All right.
All right, folks, it's me. You're stuck with me for 5 minutes more. Again, talk about another important initiative. How many of y'all had Frosh or participated in Frosh? Oh, are you the COVID babies that didn't have Frosh? Yeah, okay. So I started in 2019, and I had a beautiful Frosh experience. Now, actually, for those of you who didn't have a Frosh experience, how many of you all wish you had a Frosh experience? See, that goes about it. Frosh is your first step into Carleton campus, and the first step where you connect with your community members, and the first step where you build friends for life. I have friends from Frosh that I still talk to, and they're my best friends for now. And every single Frosh story is a very important Frosh story. Now, to go off that, it goes to target a very important issue, which is first-year students. First-year students are very impressionable. They come straight out of high school, and they need all the care and support and love that they should get from a university experience. And that is what this levy is going for. This first-year transition levy is going to make sure that those incoming first-year students and first-year status students are able to have a good experience when they come to university through Frosh, through Frost Week, and other initiatives and developments that we want to make sure that these first-year students have. CUSA spends a lot on making sure that Frosh is a very good experience. Frosh at Carleton is one of the most lowest ranked when it comes to a province-wide scan. When you see other universities like Western and Brock have a range that goes from $45 to $200 that are dedicated towards frosh. Another very important distinction to make is that this levy, which you're requesting, a first-year transition levy, will not be paid by any of us in this room unless you're first-year status students. So this levy is only going to be added to the incoming first-year students and those first-year status students. This makes sure that the money that they're paying creates a more equitable way for everyone to experience frosh. Because right now, if you don't pay the $135, you don't get frosh. That's the reality that the university charges. CUSA right now does not charge any amount for fall orientation, Frost Week, or any other initiatives that are dedicated to those 5,000 to 6,000 students that come to Carleton in their first in the fall or in Jan, depends on how you see it. So this is going separate from what the university is saying. So then our events, no matter, because right now our events are pretty small. They're not as big as the university events like the concerts or Canal Games. That's because we have limited resources and we're putting up a lot of events with that limited resources. If you went to Festival of Lights, if you went to Neon Carnival, if you went to the Winter Wonderland, that was all from CUSA that we did for our first year. Student who's coming to Carleton and they don't have the money to pay for $135 frosh. Is that equitable? No, it's not. And this is why we're hoping to add this levy directly into the tuition fee. So if in case someone is not able to afford that, there are mechanisms in way they could get that back through OSAP funding. It's part of your tuition. So you get your scholarships. You are an international student, no problem. You can apply for the Academic Initiative Fund. We will support you with that finances. This way, it makes sure there's a frosh for everyone, no matter if you can afford frosh or not. So that is all we have from the first year transition levy. It's directed to first year students. You don't pay for it. It's separate from the university frosh. It's frosh for everyone. And it makes sure that's an equitable environment for every single student, wherever socioeconomic background they come from. Thank you.
Thank you to Ferris for not only giving us 5 of his precious minutes, but also 10. So thank you again, and you can now proceed to questions from the audience once again. If you have questions, you can come up to us and ask. Anybody from the back there? Okay, yes, come on ahead. You can grab my mic.
Hi, Faris. Quick clarification question. So to be clear, this first-year transition levy has no effect on the university-run side of frosh, so that 135 fee remains the same, but it will just increase the value of CUSA's side of frosh, correct?
Correct, yes.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you, and thank you, Ferris. Round of applause for him once again. Next up, we're going to proceed to the presidential debate questions. But before we do that, can we please have the candidates proceed to the podium, please? The candidates. Thank you. Okay, so it looks like we have 4 out of the 5 candidates. I'm just gonna call one more person, just, do my best and see if he's still here. Finlay Maroney. Doesn't look like he's here. Okay, that's fine. Thank you to our candidates. We will now give each candidate 1 minute to introduce themselves. And we're going to start with Sean. Right to left.
Thank you very much. Should I stand?
No, it's okay.
Huh?
Unless if you'd like to, yes. And hold the mic, Sean. Hold the mic very close. Okay, Sean fan club. All right, Sean, if you want to hold the mic very close to your mouth, then go ahead.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Joe Ezigbo, and I'm running for the CUSA 2024 presidential election. So just to introduce myself, as I've mentioned my name, I'm from Lagos, Nigeria. Currently, I am the Vice President of Finance and Secretary Treasurer of CUSA. I've worked the position now for roughly about a year. Just a little bit about myself. I like to write poetry. I like to sing. I'm really into, community. I think the biggest thing about myself is how we can help ourselves, how we can bring not just students to CUSA, but how we can bring CUSA to the students, right? I'm running my election based on the platform that I'm not here to give you promises, but results. And I have those results to back my points, and I'm here to promise you that anything that I say I can do, I can accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean and Cameron. Let's give him a nice round of applause, you guys.
Hey everyone, my name is Cameron Azizli, and I'm running to fix CUSA. I didn't realize the state of CUSA until I became the raw president. I had club leaders complaining about delayed funding, students complaining about unnecessary fees, students who had no idea what CUSA was doing with their money. I knew I had to step up and run. I have proven experience. I brought RAW, a $1 million organization, back on its feet. We brought results with our policies, including the bike sharing program and the Club Initiative Fund, which has provided funding to a ton of clubs. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Cameron, go ahead. Bertie.
Hello.
Round of applause, guys.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Britta Setsun Arium Bold. I go by Birdie, and I'm known as the Bold leader for my campaign. I'm actually from Mongolia. I'm an international student here. I'm currently the co-president of UNICEF, and I'm actually the representative of the club's leader at the CUSA Club's Oversight Commission. So I am running because I think I have a very deep passion for student activities and student engagement. I have been part of it for a long time, and I don't think that it should be that when you get to a presidential of a club level that you should be part of a CUSA. I think you should be able to have a connection with all students, regular first years, second years, and I think there should be a great connection between the students and CUSA, and I want to be the voice of CUSA, not just a CUSA president as a status. Thank you.
Thank you, Birdie. Now, if you could please give a round of applause to Sarah, everybody in the back as well.
Hey guys, so my name is Sarah El-Fattori. I'm currently a third year neuroscience and mental health major here at Carleton.
Sorry, Sarah, can we just have you come a little closer so that we can get you on camera?
Yeah.
A few steps more. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. So I was saying my name is Sarah El-Fattori, and I'm a third year neuroscience and mental health major here at Carleton. I'm also minoring in business and psychology, and I run my own NGO. So we make about $100,000 a year that we donate to charity. So I'm very excited to be running for the candidate of the NGO of CUSA this year. I'm also very happy to be here as the first Arab and the first Muslim person to run for this position, Muslim woman to run for this position. I'm very excited for everything that we're going to be doing, and if you guys read my policies, my whole thing is student voices. I want to hear from all the students, and I want to always be receiving input, getting feedback. I feel like without criticism, you can never grow and you can never learn. So thank you all for being here, and I hope to hear from all of you soon.
Thank you to Sarah and to her fellow candidates. We're now going to begin with the introductory questions, and I'm going to just go with the grounding order. We're going to start with Sean again. And the question, we'll start with Sean, and then we'll go, and the four of you will answer the question as well, or the three of you. Sean, the question is, what past experience do you have that makes you a good candidate for the CUSA presidential role?
That's a very lovely question. So when you speak of the topic of past experience, as I mentioned before, I currently work as the Vice President of Finance of CUSA. right? Just to give you a brief background, I'll tell you that, of course, a lot of people complain about CUSA. They talk about the lack of funding, and there's many complaints that we receive on a regular daily basis. Now, this is public information that I'm going to share with you guys, but as of last year, CUSA was in a deficit of $1.5 million. Right now, that's a lot of money to be in debt of. So, as I took the position of Vice President of Finance, through my budgeting strategies and working with my finance team, I've been able to reduce that deficit to roughly about $150,000 from 1.5 million. And the budgeting strategy that I have in place, working very closely with my finance team and the acting executive director, we are looking at a surplus of $25,000 for next year. Thank you. Not only in doing so, but also being able to keep a close eye on exactly on what Faris is doing. Faris is the current president, if you don't know. Watching very closely with him, planning the campaigns, advocacy efforts with Emilia, Iman, and the other vice presidents. It has allowed me to get kind of a deeper background as to what exactly it is I can do as the president of CUSA. Being a vice president of finance, it has limited my role in exactly what I can be able to do. But I do know that when I become president, that I will be able to make a significant change to the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Cameron?
One of my primary experiences from the past is my presidency as the president of Rideau River Residents Association. So for those of you that don't know, right now I represent 3,600 Carleton University students. When I got into RA, I saw a deficit of 150,000. Right now, we covered that deficit. We covered all the debts, and we've done a lot of great work for RA. We brought new initiatives. Many students on campus now know about RA. Aside from this, I also worked in many other places on campus, and I know what students want. I have heard their concerns about CUSA. I have heard their concerns about campus, and I think I'm the right person to bring those changes.
Thank you, Cameron. Birdie?
Thank you so much for your question. So as I said before, I'm the current co-president of UNICEF Carleton. I was the former president of ACAC, which is the largest Asian association. It stands for Asian Canadian Association Carleton. And with that, I was managing an exec team of around 20 students, and it was the largest association that I've tackled with. And last year, we were able to have an Asian gala of 350 students, and was one of the biggest projects that I've done, and I think it speaks for itself. Is a very successful gala. It was, I was managing within 5 clubs, 70 execs, and going back and forth, and it was a very big budget project, and I think what that really shows is that it took a lot of effort. It took a lot of errors, had to learn through a lot of steps and obstacles, and as the current co-president of UNICEF, I've learned to manage all those mistakes that I've done in the past, and I've learned to implement them into the current management of my clubs, and I'm very excited to actually implement all the stuff that I've learned into CUSA, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Birdie. And now Sarah.
So my leadership experience started way before Carleton. By the time I was 13, I was able to raise $10,000 to build a school in Kenya, just through, and none of the initiatives that I've ever started were able to be done like just by myself. I feel like by mobilizing my community, mobilizing my peers, inciting that charitable energy from my associates, I've been able to accomplish a lot. In my time at Carleton, I mean, when I graduated grade 8, I got the leadership award. When I graduated grade 12, I got the leadership award, even though I was only at that school for 1 semester. I feel like when I set my mind to something, I'm very keen on executing it. I also, as I said, run my own NGO. I have a charitable cake business. We profit about $100,000 a year that we donate to different humanitarian crises. And we host a few events at Carleton. Just last Monday, we made $5,000 here for Palestine. So thank you to all the students that came, donated, contributed. I was also part of the SSSC. I was a first-year representative, and then I was a second-year mentor. I also ran like different workshops, teaching students on how to study to acquire better grades as an honor roll student. And I was also the neuroscience undergraduate chair last year, so I was on the board of all the neuroscience administration, was able to advocate what the students required. And I've been like presenting at conferences as well, leadership conferences. We were at SOAR like 2 weekends ago, so I'm excited to have a platform where I can hopefully be able to engage with more students and incite more of this leadership in the future.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, we're gonna change things up a little bit. For the next question, Cameron, we're gonna start with you. The question is, can you summarize your campaign priorities? And please keep the time to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, so one of the first campaign points, I think, I want to talk about Haven. Some of you might know, Haven had a book sale, discounted book sales for our students. That closed down recently. I believe that we should bring it on somewhat of a capacity because our students need this for their education. For a good education, we need this. Aside from this, I want to restructure club funding. Many of our club presidents have complained to me that they don't get the funding they need. Sometimes they get it months later. They ask for $1,600, they get $200, $100. It's a whole issue. And with RA, we have shown that we have a different way, a better way. And my hopes is to bring this to CUSA as well. Aside from this, there are student fees right now that students are paying that they should not be, such as the Millennium Village. This has been something that students has tried to get rid of for a long time. I believe under our
Cameron and Bertie.
Thank you very much for your question. So my campaign is very simple. It's very easy to associate. My last name is Arium Bold, and I am standing for the bold leadership. B stands for betterment, O stands for opportunity, L stands for listening, and D stands for diversity. My main priority to summarize it into one sentence would be to, like I said, to become the voice of students, to bridge the gap of students in CUSA, rather than just being a CUSA president. So betterment, I have multiple choices. I'm thinking of installing sleeping pods as support for the mental health, as sleeping is vital in terms of REM sleep is vital in terms of processing the brain for emotional areas. For opportunities, I'm thinking of creating a new business for CUSA. I'm thinking of creating the internet cafe, which will be added revenue for the CUSAs, and as well as bringing a lot of jobs. And most of all, I'm trying to create a campus-wide student experience data collection survey, where we will be reporting and we'll be reflecting and analyzing the data, and most of all, creating some more diversities. That will just be a encapsulation of my campaign. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Bertie. We now move on to Sarah.
So, being a leader of the CUSA union, I feel like since you're representing such a large student population, and as we said earlier, such a diverse student population of 60% visible minority, being the majority in this case, I think it's very important to hear from students what they need before we make decisions. I feel like a lot of leaders make decisions based on their own agenda, and then they just do what they want, regardless of what other people need. So following up to this campaign, before I decided what I was going to do, I reached out to a lot of different students. I walked around to different people, some people who said they've never had their voices heard before, and asked, what do these students want? How can I make it more accessible for our students? What can we do for everyone? So all of my platform points are very diverse. We have things from a student mentorship program, a new student union building, another Carleton Service Center for social justice and legal clinic, an Indigenous reconciliation and advisory board, academic accommodations, especially for people in engineering and computer science, and advancing more mental health progress for our teaching staff, doing some things with campus security, making it easier for clubs to have events. We have all of our platform points and policies on the website. If you guys have any questions, you can always reach out to me. But hopefully I have something for everyone, and my biggest thing is student voices. Reach out to me if you guys have any ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We now move on to Sean.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. To touch on the three main points that I have for my campaign, the first is off-campus housing support, right? So I plan to make a subsection of CUSA called the OCAC, which is basically going to be called the Off-Campus Advising Center. And what it's going to comprise is of two positions. One full-time staff, which is going to be well-trained in the field of real estate, when it comes to housing, the legal documents, doing viewings, and dealing with local government in terms of, regulations and restrictions and dealing with landlords. So that's going to be the first thing. Then I'm going to create a student job, which is going to support and deal mainly with the student in terms of helping them do house viewings, helping them do the legal work, sign paperwork. So basically, they're going to be given the authority of the student to be able to sign documents and contracts for them, so to alleviate housing pressures off of students on campus, because housing is a main issue. Not only that, but it's going to run as a pilot program so that we're going to see how it runs with one student first, and I eventually plan to make it a whole team. So about 7 to 8 students, one working on the legal side, one working on the housing side, one working on the viewing side, one working with the local government side. So what I plan to do is two things. I plan to help students that are struggling with housing problems, and I plan to create student jobs for students that are looking to go into the field of real estate. That's one. The second thing I plan to do is advocacy on sexual violence prevention and deal with international student conflicts. So what I plan to do is, right now I'm not sure if everybody is aware of the hazing situation that's going on with a lot of the fraternities and sororities on campus. So what I want to do is increase advocacy towards the university to be able to directly solve and create problem solutions for those issues. Another thing I want to do is create a volunteer group that directly deals with going to different clubs as they're having programs to be able to offer sexual violence prevention workshops, information sessions, so that we can really meet clubs where they're at instead of us doing our own initiatives for them to come to us. And then lastly, what I plan to do is I plan to rework the club's mandate policy. So basically, if you know, clubs currently are only clubs with the same mandates are not allowed to run.
Sorry, Sean, your time is up. Really
All right,
sorry.
thank you.
A heartfelt thank you. A heartfelt thank you to our candidates. Round of applause. We now move to our next category.
Our next category is going to be advocacy. So we're going to start with, as CUSA president, how will you work with the university administration to communicate and advocate for students' needs? And we please ask that you be specific. And Bertie, we're going to begin with you.
For sure. Thank you so much for your question. So in terms of advocating, I am very on board with the referendum. I will be advocating for equity, ensuring that every staff and executive at CUSAs are aware of and educated of the gender-based challenges and the racial-based challenges, creating scholarships and awards for women and BIPOC students. How will I be doing that? Will be to advocating through making referendums and making documents and real proof, concrete evidence showing that these are the stuff that needs to be dealt with through the campus-wide reports that we'll be getting from the surveys all around the campus. And I think that's going to be a way to advocate for the students. And another thing that I'll be advocating for the students will be through listening, as much as I am trying to create this new service called the financial literacy services. For that, I will be working along with administrations to tackle the issue of how nowadays that universities are not being finished within 4 years, but rather 6 years. A lot of students are actually struggling in terms of having to carry the full course load as well as financially supporting themselves throughout the Carleton University 4 years. And that way, we have to emphasize more on compassionate grading, realizing people actually have real life problems. And I really want to work with the business sprouts and the Scotia banks and the administrations to tackle more on issues of why our students are not graduating within the 4 years, because there's much deeper problems that is happening, and I really want to tackle the issue, and I really want to bring forward with evidence that we need to just not only going to be able to graduate 4 years and expect everything to go right and transition to new life, and I actually want people to have prepared for the new life right after university. Thank you.
Thank you, Bertie. We'll be moving on to Sarah now. So advocacy is one of my main platform points, and I have 3 kind of sub-points. One being concerning combating hate and promoting mental wellness, ensuring campus safety. The second being regarding advancing accessibility and inclusivity, and then also academic accommodations. For each one, in terms of combating hate and ensuring campus safety, doing more mental health training and more cultural training with our campus safety so that they're used to dealing with a diverse group of people, knowing how to approach international students, knowing how to speak with different people from different mental health backgrounds so that we don't run into issues that we saw like across Canada. We saw there was a person of color that was calling their campus security for a mental health crisis. They ended up being shot and killed. We're coming here to study. We're not coming here to be killed. We need to learn how to communicate with these students in a more appropriate manner. In terms of regarding accessibility and inclusivity on campus, living with a disabled person this year has made me realize how inaccessible our campus is. We only have 10-minute breaks between a lot of our classes. Being a neuroscience student, you can't get there late. There's not enough accessibility. The elevators are too small. Some places you can't get to even with an elevator. There's no ramps in a lot of places. And I promised myself when I saw that I was going to do something about it, regardless if I get this presidency or not. Specifically working with CDAC and the PMC, doing regular audits so that we can ensure that all of our spaces are more accessible friendly, and in creating our new our new building, hopefully to make it completely accessible from the start, so we don't have to go back and fix the issues of the past. In terms of the academic accommodations, it's just impossible to decide that like through a 4-year term you're not going to have anything that you struggle with, especially for computer science and engineering students. We need to do more mental health training with our profs, teach them how to respond to students that are struggling, maybe like extending our pass fail to over just first years to second, third, and fourth years, and just having more accommodations for our students so we're making it easier for them to graduate on time. Especially for international students, if they fail a class, I have international students that fail by 1% and have to stay in the summer, miss their family's graduation.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, we'll be moving on to Sean.
Thank you very much for the question. So when it comes to advocacy, I have 2 major points in which I'm going to be focusing on: international student conflict, sexual violence prevention. Sorry. When it comes to international students conflict, the main thing I'm going to be focusing on, not only when I become president, not only am I going to give all CUSA staff training for dealing directly with international students conflict. So when students do come into CUSA, we will not have to send them away to different resources to be able to get help, but we will be able to deal with it internally. When I become the president of CUSA, I want the front desk staff to be able to deal with somebody that comes in crying or having a breakdown due to international student conflict. I want the person that prints being able to deal with a student that is struggling with a mental health crisis. I'm also going to increase advocacy to the university as well as the local government through MPs and MPPs so that we are able to pass the message across that this is an issue and a change must happen. Now, when it comes to sexual violence prevention, and I talked about it in one of my campaign points before, we have monthly meetings with the university in which we're able to bring up different points of issues of contact. And what I plan to do is ensure that not only are we just saying, okay, we're not going to deal with the issues of the hazing that happens off campus, but we're going to see how we can actually solve problems. We don't want to do damage control. We want to stop the problem before it causes any damage. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. We'll be moving on to Cameron.
As an international student and a person of color, I have seen and observed the struggles of our students. I know what they feel, the rising tuition costs, all the problems, the discrimination and everything that comes with it. I know what they feel, I know their problems, and I'm here to make a change. I'm here to show that CUSA can show a firmer stance when it comes to student issues. During my time at RA, I've done my best to make sure that our students' issues and concerns are presented on the bigger platform. I've used my platform, I've used my position to showcase these issues and try to solve them. With that being said, I've been a part of EDI committees and many other committees, doing my best to fix these issues, or at the least do my best to show that these problems exist so that someone out there can do their best to find the solution to it if it's not me. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Our next question will be, how will you communicate with unions in case of future strike or negotiations? And we're going to be starting with Sarah.
So as I said earlier, part of my leadership style is to always listen to my team, listen to the people that I'm working with, understanding where they're coming from so that it's easy to mitigate any type of conflict. In terms of unions, unions usually strike because they're not getting the bare minimum, they're not getting the necessities, and they feel that the only way that they're able to get what they want is to go on strike. I understand that, especially being a woman, I understand that. Sometimes you feel the only way that you're able to get something is to rebel, to strike, to do this. I feel like if we are just preemptive with our unions, if we're better communication, we're understanding what they need, and we're always looking through different accessibility audits, we're seeing what their struggles are, then we can avoid going on strikes. We can, and if that is the last resort and they feel that that's the only thing that they can do, then hopefully to work with them to understand how we can support them better moving forward so that we don't fall into these types of situations. I feel like a strike is a last resort, and hopefully that the unions that we're working with as a leader and as the president of CUSA, they won't feel that they have to resort to that as a last option.
Thank you, Sarah. Now, Sean.
The question on unions is a particularly interesting one, right? So when we're dealing with unions at CUSA, we're talking about 1281 and the likes of the sort. Now, me personally, as my current relationship stands, I know the names and the faces of all the union representatives that we deal with at CUSA. I know what they need. I know how to work with them. I have a very good relationship with them, and we keep in constant communication. When I become president, I believe that in order to solve this problem with the unions, we have to meet them where they're at, right? The issue is that a lot of the times we come into these problems because CUSA has had, and I've mentioned this before, CUSA has had a history of being like financially not able to support a lot of different people and a lot of different groups. But with my financial investment plan, we'll be able to raise enough money so that the unions, because when we talk about unions, the majority of the issue is with financing and with
students, and we have staff of more than 20 people. I have numerous times dealt with students, I have dealt with staff, employees, and all of it. We work with a bunch of suppliers. We have a business that we deal with, that we operate in. These things allow me to be more prepared for what is to come in the future. In the case that it does come, I have gained enough experience and knowledge to face these things and solve them properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Bertie?
For this question, I would like to also kind of empathize with two of my candidates. I think preventive measures are much more important than what to do with in terms of how to negotiate and everything like that. So just like them, I would do everything if possible to prevent anything that gets to that point, and making sure there's constant communications, there's constant transparency between, and having a good connection with all the unions. Hopefully, maybe possibly having meetings, setups, here and there. That could be one of the ways of implementing a good connection and transparency for preventive measures. Yes, but if anything were to happen to that, how would we measure, how would we negotiate, and how would we communicate with them? I would obviously, of course, just like everything, like my L from the bold, listening, and it's going to be crucial for me. I'm going to be listening to what they're saying and what the students are saying as well. I want to make sure that everything needs to be done from everyone's perspective, possibly at the best way possible. And for me, that will be to obviously taking times and maybe really critically looking at it from a reasonable obvious objective perspective. And obviously, I really want things to be done quickly, so actually working on results and prioritizing all of the operations, hopefully for the unions, negotiations, and the communications if it comes to that point. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next question will be, how will you advocate for the needs of international students, particularly regarding high tuition costs? And we're going to be beginning with Sean.
To answer this question, I'm going to answer it, but I'm not directly going to answer it. So when it comes to advocating for international students' tuition, what my solution is for that is, A lot of people complain about the fees that they have to pay to CUSA, and this is because we need money to be able to offer the programs and the incentives that we do, right? With my investment plan and with the fact that we are going to be in a surplus next year, we as CUSA are actually going to be able to reduce the amount of fees that students are going to be able to pay, because we're going to be able to support ourselves sustainably other than the money that we receive from student fees. Right now, myself and the President Faris are actually working on creating a new business, which is right there. It's called The Wing, which is going to be another source of revenue generation, in which we'll be able to use to streamline income, just so that we don't have to solely rely on student fees. Right now, the reason, and one of my candidates touched on this, but Haven, the reason why Haven Books was closed is because the organization was bleeding us $400,000 on a yearly basis. This was an incentive that I put into place because I understood the books, I knew the books, I wrote the books, right? So we were able to address this, and we were able to create a solution that has put CUSA in a better standing, right? So when all these things that I've said are put into place, we may not actually need to go to the university for advocacy. We'll be able to solve the problems ourselves. That's what I plan to do when I become president.
Thank you, Sean. Cameron?
As an international student, I know the fees that we pay. Year by year they increase, and this struggles our students. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that we pay, and if I get the presidency, and when I get the presidency, I will petition our students, and I will present a motion to our parliament so that we can show our concerns with what's going on, to show that this is hard on us. It's a lot. We can't take it. It affects our mental health, well-being. Our students cannot pay the high fees anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Birdie?
Thank you. So if I get elected, I would actually want to, as one of my things, is to create a very large mosaic cultural events. This will be one of a much bigger event that the Mosaic campaign has been going on for the last year and I just want to say that this will be very big, to the point where I am actually interested in involving the embassy and the ambassadors that represent all these flags that stands upon us. And I really would like to have a good communications with all these ambassadors and embassies, that they can also be part of the solution of figuring out a way to how to bring the tuition down. And also I want to continue on the program of the Faris started, I think, is the guaranteeing the student tuition of, if you are locked in for a certain amount, hopefully within the next until you're graduated or your program is ended, is to guarantee to pay the same amount. And also, obviously, as CUSA president, I would love to give back to the students, because what they're paying should be worth what they're paying. And I really want to make sure that they get everything they possibly can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Birdie. Sarah?
Thank you for the question. So I feel like for international students, the funding and paying of the high tuition is greater than just a CUSA issue. It's an issue with the Carleton administration. So obviously we can do everything we can to advocate from a CUSA perspective, and as CUSA president, I would 100% do that. But we have to work also on like the things that are leading to those high tuition costs, things like making sure that our international students are getting proper mental health support so that they're not dropping their courses and failing them, so that they don't have to pay to retake those courses. Giving more funds for scholarships, giving more international student recognition, and working with different organizations outside of our school and that operate in our school as well, such as Humans in Flight, that like recognize international students, their accomplishments, where they came from, what they did, doing things like that so that we can empower our students to get better positions, leadership roles, jobs, so that they can better support themselves, as well as also advocating to our to our Carleton administration for lower tuition costs, hopefully in the future.
Okay, there we go. Our final advocacy question is going to be: transit is one of Carleton students' biggest problems. How will you advocate for better, more reliable public transport with local politicians? And we're going to be beginning with Cameron.
Thank you for the question. As someone who consistently takes the bus, like many of our fellow students, I know the struggle. I can see that it affects a lot of us. OC Transpo has failed many of us many times. My goal in this position will be to meet with the mayor and the council and do my best to make sure that we finally make a change. It's been years now that the train was going to start, and here we are, and nothing has happened. So I will hope that this changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Birdie?
Thank you for your question. That is a very pressing thing that needs to be solved, and that is why I really wanted to emphasize on the L of my campaign, which is listening. We all know that this thing, that transportation really irks the inside of us everywhere. It's unbelievable how undeniable it is. But the thing is, the reason why I know this to my core is I live in Gatineau, and I come all the way here every day, an hour bus ride. But the thing is, I see a shift between the Quebec side of buses and Ontario side of buses. So I think it's actually the OC Transport that the company or the Ontario, the provincial, the ministers are not able to do sufficiently their jobs as well as the Quebecers are able to do. So I will be looking into all the other provinces, how they run their transports, and looking into how they were able to expedite this processes and advocate for Carleton, especially the OC Transport, the trains, why they're taking so long. There should be at least an answer to why it is or when it's going to happen. And that's why I really want there to be a place where people can actually complain. If there's enough, there should be something that's done officially, and I really want to be the voice of students for that. And also on top of the transport thing, if I have time. Hello? I would also like to emphasize on how, like my friend here, Sarah, said that going from one part of the campus to the other part of campus takes 20 minutes. I think there should be some sort of transportation within campus that should be able to get people to go to around classes and get to the other side of the campus much faster. A lot of people park, but they have to walk all across the campus just to go to another class. I think that's quite insufficient, and I think it's just troubling their students' life that is unnecessary. And I would love to tackle that problem too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Birdie. Sarah?
So as CUSA president, you're managing a lot of different things, one of them 100% being transit. Speaking to a lot of our students, they had a lot of issues with the current transit system. One of them being, as I said earlier, a lot of our students are commuters, so they commute from far distances, whether that's 45 minutes to some people that we're talking to, over 2 hours to get to school every single day. To even activate their UPass, they must come into campus and activate it. So even though they're paying for the service, they have to find their way to get to campus somehow. Either that's by Ubering, by this, by that, just to activate their campus card. I was talking to the current Associate Vice President of Government Relations. He's doing a lot of work already, communicating with the local government, doing things for OC Transpo, making our service and our transit easier on campus already. So hopefully, creating a more digital system so people can activate their bus passes digitally, online. In this day of technology, I don't know why it hasn't already been done. And then also to advocate for students that are paying for parking to maybe be able to opt out of the transit for people who are not using the transit, or to get better parking spots and more accommodations for disabled students that require specific transit to campus. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Sean?
So the issue of transits is very interesting. Actually, currently at CUSA, we are doing some advocacy for local transport at the moment. We actually were successful, a team that was led by myself and some of the other members of CUSA. We were successful with providing parking solutions for parking at Haven the cafe, which is off campus. So I know what it takes to work with local government. I know how the dealings work in order to advocate for students. But something else I want to touch on is shuttle buses. Right now, CUSA provides shuttle buses during exam periods to take students from campus to kind of major areas around the city. So let's say downtown, Manotick, the east, the west, all over. So the reason that we are not able to do this on a consistent basis is, again, back to the issue of finances, right? And as everybody may know, as I've said, my financial plans will be able to put us in a place that we are actually able to provide these shuttle buses on a more reoccurring occasion. The thing is, I want to do advocacy, right? I want to be able to rely on the local government and OC Transfer for our students to be able to get where they need to go. But I think that we ourselves as CUSA need to do more. And we will do more when I become president to ensure that students regarding transportation are kept safe. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, candidates. We will now be taking a 10-minute break, and you can come back for 6:20 for the debate to start again. Thank you.